Hello viewers, and welcome to the latest entry in the LOTR LCG Progression Series, a production by Cardboard of the Rings, the bi-weekly podcast about the Lord of the Rings, the card game, which is a living card game by Fantasy Flight Games. My name is Mitch.
And I'm Matthew.
And today we're going to be taking a look at a special scenario released during Gen Con 2012. This is the Battle for Lake Town. So Matthew, why don't you introduce us to our story?
Believed to be nothing but a legend by the younger generation of men who live in Lake Town, Smaug the dragon descends from the lonely mountain unlooked for in the dead of night. The dragon believes the people of Lake Town are responsible for the recent theft of his treasure, but the people of Lake Town know nothing of this. All they know is that if they don't stop him, Smaug will destroy their homes. Now, the heroes must face the dragon's wrath to save Lake Town from burning.
Alright, so now that we've wrapped up our story, why don't we go ahead and take a look at our player deck. So starting with myself, I'm going to be running a familiar allotment of heroes. I've got Dane to bolster the dwarves between Matthew and myself. I've got Thorin for resource acceleration and Ori to give me additional card advantage. I have a ton of different dwarves that have effects where when you control 5 dwarves, they're either cheaper or they draw additional cards, so it's going to be up to me running this deck to try and hit that 5 dwarf threshold as quickly as possible. I've got effects like King Under the Mountain that I'll throw to Matthew's side of the table to give him card draw. I've got effects like Legacy of Durin for myself, Asphalloth because we're going up against a ton of locations, and something that I've really never played with before, Narvi's Belt, just so I can get those Erebor Battlemasters and Veteran Axe Hands into play. Because Smaug is such a formidable opponent, we're going to end up needing a ton of attack strength to bring him down. So, what are you running, Matthew?
So, while Mitch's deck may be somewhat familiar, mine is quite a departure, I think, from the decks I typically play, largely that I'm not using tactics. I'm using 2 of the newest heroes, Balin and Owen, and good old standby Glorfindel. Ton of allies in my deck to hopefully get a lot of them out, to add extra willpower to the quest. Erebor Battlemaster, as Mitch was saying, to help us with Smaug towards the end of the quest. But largely, I think the goal of my deck is just to get out as many allies as possible, and let's see if that's enough to save Lake Town.
Alright, well, now that we've covered our player decks, why don't we go ahead and shuffle those and end up drawing our opening hand of 6 cards, and here's hoping we get something spectacular against this very difficult scenario. From my hand, I like that I've got Asphalloth. He's probably going to end up being instrumental, but I don't have an easy way to hit my 5 dwarf thresholds. Something that's going to be really important is just providing a large number of allies sitting in play to absorb Smaug attacks, so I think I'm going to have to mulligan. And how about you?
Yeah, my hand isn't stellar either, so I'm going to take a mulligan as well.
Looks like my recycled hand is a little bit odd. I've got some card replacement effects, some nice card draw, but other than that, nothing too great, but it might be a decent foundation. I guess, were you any luckier?
No, it's not much better than the first hand, but we'll just have to go with it.
Alright, well, seeing as how we've both gotten a pretty optimistic start, why don't we go ahead and actually take a look at this scenario. So what makes this unique? So Quest Phase 1A reads, shuffle all copies of Smaug into a separate Smaug deck. Then search the encounter deck for Lake Town and add it to the staging area. Shuffle the encounter deck and reveal 1 encounter card per player added to the staging area. So the way that this functions is we've got our encounter deck here, and we also have a Smaug deck. There's 9 cards in that Smaug deck, 3 different versions of Smaug that each have 3 copies. They each have a different when revealed effect, they each have a different engagement cost, and a different statistical allotment. At the very beginning of the quest phase, the first player has to decide, do they want Smaug to enter the staging area, or do they want Smaug engaged with them? So based on what we have in play, based on what we can bring to bear, that's kind of going to end up determining our choice there. So each turn there's a chance for a new Smaug version, but the damage you deal that version of Smaug is going to persist between iterations. Another thing that comes into play is once we start progressing past our initial quest phase 1A, the current quest phase dictates the maximum amount of damage that can be sitting there on Smaug, so he can't actually be destroyed until we get to the third and final quest phase. But since that's getting quite a ways ahead of us, Lake Town here, sitting in the staging area, is an objective. It doesn't really serve any purpose other than tracking a new keyword introduced in this scenario, which is burn. So if Lake Town has 50 or more damage on it, then the players have lost the game. It represents Lake Town having been completely destroyed by the voracious, villainous Smaug. Almost all of the location cards in this encounter deck have the burn keyword, like burn 1 or burn 2, and there's different times during the scenario when players are told to trigger that burn damage. So X basically equals the total number of burn damage that ends up going on to Lake Town, and as the players we have a kind of seldom used option where we can exhaust a character in order to absorb some of that burn damage instead. So, when assigning burn damage, each player may exhaust any number of his characters to assign any number of burn damage to those characters up to their remaining hit points, and any damage that we choose not to assign, of course, splatters onto Lake Town. So why don't I go ahead and verify that I've shuffled the encounter deck, and let's go ahead and satisfy that final requirement, which is 2 encounter cards. So encounter card number 1 is going to be each player must choose and discard 1 ally he controls. Of course, we cannot, so that is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 points of damage to Lake Town.
Okay.
So
not a great start.
yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I suppose it could be worse, but we'll see.
Sure. So encounter card number 2 is going to be Fisherman's Docks. So this has burn 1 and travel if there's 1 active location, exhaust a hero to travel here, and there are now 2 active locations. This is fantastic Asphalloth fodder, but of course he's not in play.
Yep.
Traditionally, Matthew and I have always made myself the first player, with I think 1 exception, so I'll go ahead and make myself that now. Let's go ahead and flip to Quest Phase 1B. This reads quite simply, Smaug cannot have more than 6 damage on him, and when revealed, we do another couple points of damage to Lake Town. So, shall we get started?
Let's do it.
Alright, so planning phase number 1, 1 resource for each character, draw 1 card. And I'm now sitting on 2 Istari. So for my turn, it's a little unnerving that I don't have any cheap allies to just drop into play, so I'm going to go ahead and do Daron's Runes to draw 2 cards. And as my discard, I think I'm going to end up getting rid of a Lure of Moria, so I'm going to get rid of that Daron's Runes. And then since I'm kind of stuck at a crappy place, I'm going to go ahead and do We Are Not Idle for 0, and I'm just going to end up drawing 1 more card, hoping for something good, and it didn't quite do it. So I've now got a mount for Glorfindel. Hopefully I'll end up surviving to make it past this initial round, and it's looking like that is all I'm going to do.
Okay, well, that will change what I am going to do significantly, and so I'm going to pay 2 for Arwen, boost up Dane's defense if we decide not to put him in Smaug in the staging area, and that is it for me.
Alright. Well, at the beginning of the quest phase, first player has to pick either my engagement area or the staging area as a destination for Smaug. So I'm going to go ahead and shuffle our Smaug deck, and I suppose I'm gonna pick our staging area. So
Okay.
Let's see what we get. So the first version of Smaug is Smaug the Mighty. So immediately he's gonna make an attack against each player, and we deal and resolve a shadow card for each attack. So it's gonna be 5 is what he's swinging for.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go ahead and do 1 shadow card there. I suppose really all I can do is defend with Dane Ironfoot, so let's see what the shadow card is, and this is nothing. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. Dane is going to end up taking 2 points of damage, since Arwen, of course, is yet to exhaust. And then Smaug also makes an attack against you.
As much as I hate to do this, I think I'm going to have Arwen defend.
Yeah, it's probably really the only safe thing to do. And it's going to be, if this attack destroys a character, Smaug engages the next player and makes an immediate attack against that player. So we do have an option to cancel that shadow effect.
Might as well. That's what these resources are for.
Alright, so let's go ahead and cancel that effect and end up giving Smaug a new card. And that is going to be deal 1 damage on Lake Town.
Okay.
So, not too big of a deal. And of course, Arwen is killed, and that is going to be it for our quest phase combat. So, for actual questing, we can rest assured that this enemy is not going to be engaging with us, most likely. So I'm going to send 5, since Dane is unfortunately exhausted.
Yeah. I'll send 7, which negates Smaug.
Alright, so it looks like you've got to boost up your threat.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sending 5. We've got a grand total of 12 that we're sending. And let's see how much threat we end up gaining. So encounter card number 1 is, when revealed, choose and shuffle 1 peer location from the victory display into the encounter deck. If no location was shuffled in, it's going to gain Surge. So almost all of these locations have victory values, and it's basically up to us to obtain more victory points than there is burn damage on Lake Town. Otherwise, even if we kill Smaug at the end, we still lose. So this Catching Fire is going to gain Surge, and it surges to encounter card number 1, resolve all burn damage from locations in play. It's going to be 1 more point of damage on Lake Town.
Alright.
And encounter card number 2 is going to be Merchant's District,
Yikes. Alright.
which is 4 threat, but the travel action is not the end of the world. So for 11, we're going to be up against a total of 13.
Well, that sucks.
We're going to gain 1 threat. So
Yep.
that does kind of suck. For travel, we can do 2 damage per player to get rid of Merchant's District completely,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm thinking we should probably do.
Sure.
Alright, so let's go ahead and control V to add that to our victory display, and that is 1, 2, 3, 4 damage on Lake Town, and that was a travel action. It wasn't using our travel. Technically, we have to make the decision to travel before we use travel actions, but there's no reason not to travel to Fisherman's Docks. So
Right.
let's go ahead and make that active. Because there's not already an active location, we don't have to exhaust a hero, so it is just straight up active.
Okay.
For engagement, Smaug does not have to engage with either of us. I vote we leave him alone.
I agree.
Alright, so that is going to bring us to refresh. So let's go ahead and control R. I will make you first player, and that brings us to planning phase number 2.
I will spend 2 for the Sigil Miner, and that is it for me.
Alright. So for my turn, I think what I want to do is I'm going to do 2 resources off of Ori for Asphalloth on Glorfindel, and then I'm going to go ahead and pass on what's left of my turn.
Alright, well I guess we should reveal a new Smaug, and I'll say leave him in the staging area.
Alright, so let's see what we get. So, new version of Smaug is going to be Smaug the Magnificent. So move 3 damage from Smaug to Lake Town. He's engagement cost of 30. And that means Smaug the Mighty is going to be discarded. So Smaug the Magnificent is now sitting here. He's going to be contributing 5 threats. So this is probably going to change what I'm going to do slightly. But at the beginning of the quest phase, now that we've done that, I'm going to spend 1 resource. I'm going to go ahead and do a sneak attack.
I am Gandalf, and Gandalf means me.
And I'm going to go ahead and put Gandalf into play I'm going to pick that dropped threat option, which is going to put me down to 28.
All right, then I will go ahead and send the team. Let me raise my threat, and then so I'm sending 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm sending 12.
Okay, and myself, I'm going to do 8, 11. So it looks like we're going to send a grand total of 23.
10. I'm sorry, Mitch. I'm sending 11.
Oh, okay. So grand total of 22, looking a little bit better than last turn for sure. So encounter card number 1 is going to be Esgaroth Wharf.
Of course. All right.
And of course, this has to come up prior to us using Asphalloth. This is really one of the worst effects in the game here, because this is Smaug, makes an additional attack, and of course all locations are immune to player card effects. So, in retrospect, would have been great to use Asphalloth, but we missed it. Encounter card number 2 is going to be the Master's Manor, which is a 1-copy card. It is absolutely horrific, obviously. So we're going to be up against a total of 4, 5, 6, 7, total of 12 threats. At least we're going to end up making 10 progress. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I'm going to go ahead and Control V to add the Fisherman's Dock to the victory display.
Okay.
And at this point, we've got an option. Do we want to go to this Esgaroth Wharf?
Yeah, that's my thought.
Okay, so let's try and deal with that. And that is totally a bummer that we did not use Asphalloth, but oh well.
Yeah, my thought was, well, who knows what's going to come off? We should, we might want to use it on a location in the staging area instead, and then, of course, this card comes off.
Sure. So, hindsight, of course, is always 20/20. So, for travel, we've done that. For engagements, neither of us have threat values high enough to worry about Smaug the Magnificent here, and it's looking like we're pretty much good to go. So, at the end of the quest phase, of course, Gandalf bounces back to my hand. No combat or anything like that, so why don't we go ahead and Control R to refresh. If you'd be so kind as to make me first player, I will draw 1 card. I will do my resources. For me, I think I'm going to play 1 lore resource for Legacy of Durin, and I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4. For a Longbeard Orc Slayer, so I draw 1 card, and that ends up being something that's decent, but again, not able to really do anything with that, so that is going to be my turn.
Okay, all I'm going to do this turn is play a Light of Valinor to keep my threat from going up, and that is it for me.
Okay, so definitely feel like I'm struggling between the two of us. One of our big challenges here is, like, the Feely and Keely combo is so good, and I've got to say, I missed that, getting me to 5 dwarfs on the first or second turn here, so... Alright, I am first player, so I suppose, shall I dump Smaug into the staging area yet again?
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I haven't drawn a Keely nor a Feely, so if you were having the same luck as me, you'd still be in the same predicament.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sending 12 or 11 to the quest on my own, which is pretty good, which is going to negate anything Smaug throws our way.
And I'll be sending a ton myself.
Okay,
so,
and we only have 1 more turn for you being immune, unless we Gandalf or something, for you being immune to him coming down. So, I guess if we get the immediate attack one, we both have chumps, so I guess he can I guess we can do the staging area.
Sure. So why don't I go ahead and put a new version of Smaug in the staging area, and this is our third and final one. This is going to be resolve all burn damage from all locations in play. So let me first get rid of Smaug the Magnificent here. And yeah, just like you said, looks like it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Fortunately, once we get to Quest Phase 2, excess progress tokens can remove burn tokens. So since we're sitting at only 5 victory points, that's going to be very handy.
Yes.
But Smaug is 6 threat himself. He's 35 engagement, so both of us are pretty safe.
Yep.
So, for committing characters to the quest, I suppose, first of all, I'm going to go ahead and pay 1 resource, and I'm going to go ahead and do yet another sneak attack.
I am Gandalf, and Gandalf means me.
and I'm going to pick Gandalf, and I'm going to use his option of drawing 3 cards. So I actually ended up getting some fantastic stuff that should end up really, really helping.
Okay.
So good. And committing characters to the quest, there's not really any reason not to send everybody, so I'm going to do 5, 6, 7, 8, 12 myself.
Alright, I'm sending 11 once again.
Alright, so grand total of 23 this time, and let's see what we're up against. So encounter card number 1 is going to be Merchant's District, so this is, once again, that deal 2 damage per player to add it to the victory display, but 4 threat sucks. Encounter card number 2 is going to be each player must choose and discard 1 ally he controls, if able.
Okay, well, there goes my Sigil Miner, so I am down to 9.
And I think I'm actually going to get rid of Gandalf, which drops me down to 8.
Yikes.
So that is going to modify what we've sent to 17, and let's see what we're up against. So 4, 10, 14, so we're going to make 1, 2, 3 progress. So that is very unfortunate. So far we've missed out on a total of 4 progress tokens from Asphalloth. Would have certainly been helpful, but things should be looking up a little bit next turn. For our travel phase, of course, we don't have a travel option, but we do have the ability to do this 2 damage per player to Lake Town to get rid of the Merchant's Districts.
I think we have to.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and control V, and that puts us at 20 damage, but hopefully we'll be able to take care of that without too much issue before long.
Okay.
But for engagement, we don't have to deal with Smaug quite yet, and that means, of course, there is no combat, so why don't we go ahead and control R to refresh. I will make you first player, and I'm now at 30 threats. I still don't have that 5 dwarf threshold, but I've now got a ton of tactics dwarf power in my hand. But what are you going to be doing for planning?
I guess I will play another copy of the Sigil Miner, and that's it for me.
Alright. Damn it, Steward of Gondor, where are you? So, I guess I'm not doing really anything this turn. Next turn will be better.
Okay, I'm scared. Alright, so staging area or engaged? Engage me. I mean, I can have my Sigil chump. We've got to make progress. This is getting ridiculous. So, I think in the interest of making progress and trying to put some of the fires out, I will have Smaug engage with me.
Alright, so here's hoping it's not too terrible. So new version of Smaug is Smaug the Magnificent. So this is 3 damage from Smaug directly to Lake Town. Let's get rid of our old version of Smaug. And he's actually going to be sitting here, attacking for quite a lot, but hopefully your chump blocker here is going to survive through the quest phase. When it comes to committing characters to the quest, what are you going to send?
I'll send 9.
Okay, and I'm going to send 8, so it looks like we've got a grand total of 17. And let's see what we reveal. So encounter card number 1 is going to be East Pier, and this is when revealed effects cannot be cancelled, so that is a nightmare card. Counter card number 2 is going to be Great House. Resolve all burn damage from all locations in play. So 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Whoops. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Lake Town not looking great, but fortunately we've survived another staging, and that might end up being all we need in the long run. So looks like we're up against 8, 12 threat. We're going to make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 progress, but that means Esgaroth Wharf is gone, and if you want, you can snipe like the East Pier or something.
Yep. Well, yeah, let's go ahead.
Yeah. So East Pier is going to be also added to our victory display, so even though we've got 28 burn, we've also got 14 victory points at this point. For travel, there's really no reason not to go to the Great House.
Yep, I agree.
Alright, so Great House is now active. For combat, here is Smaug.
So Lake Town's about to get a whole lot more damage, but gonna have to defend with my Sigil.
Alright, so the Sigil Miner shadow effect is... Okay, so this is nasty, because this is Smaug will be attacking for 10.
Well, this is what Balin is for, so let me spend a resource to cancel that shadow effect.
Alright, so new shadow card is going to be deal 1 damage to each character in play. Any player may discard a hero to cancel this effect.
I can Hasty Stroke. I'm going to have to. I will spend 1 resource to Hasty Stroke that.
Alright. So,
and that is that.
Great contingency plan. So, looks like the Sigil Miner is going to soak up 2, so that's going to be excess 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Lake Town sitting at 34 damage.
Yeah.
So, at the end of combat, let's get rid of that shadow card. So, 8 defense, awfully tough to crack. But, who knows? Maybe we'll still pull through, so...
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and refresh. If you'd make me first player, I will draw 1 card, and I will do my resources. For my turn, I'm going to go ahead and do 1, 2, 3 resources to put Glowin into play. So, I control 5 dwarves, he gets that response. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Ori to gain 2 resources. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, and I'm also going to play Biffer. So, Biffer is going to have me draw 2 cards. Glowin, I get to draw a card, and Biffer, I get to draw a card. So 1, 2, 3, 4 total, which included a Istari, which is going to be nice. So that's it for me.
So I will not be playing anything.
Okay, so hopefully you've got something decent you're saving up for.
Yep.
For quest phase, at the very beginning, I'm going to go ahead and pick my staging area. So let's see what Smaug we get.
Please not immediate attack.
And it is the immediate attack one.
Crap.
So let's get rid of the old version of Smaug. This is going to be 1 immediate attack against each player.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and do mine first. I'm going to pick Biffer that I just put out. And this is our one objective here. This is the old Thrush, which would have made Smaug a million times easier to end up killing. So Smaug the Magnificent, of course, Smaug the Mighty, is going to end up killing my Biffer, and the old Thrush is going to be discarded, which blows. For you...
I'm going to have to do Balin. He's got the best defense.
Alright, so here's hoping for something innocent. Defending character gets -2.
I'm going to have to cancel that.
And there is a pretty limited number of effects like these, so let's do a replacement to... if this attack destroys a character, resolve burn damage.
Well, it's not.
And I'm glad to see this as a shadow card.
But Balin is almost dead.
Right. And considering the number of damage to characters, that's really not cool.
Yeah. Hardy leadership. We need you.
So let me go ahead and get rid of that card, and now I guess it's time for the moment of truth. So committing characters, I'll do 4, 7, 11 total sent.
I can do 6.
Okay, so it looks like we're going to yet again do that grand total of...
And let me go ahead and trigger Asphalloth to put 2 on our location here.
Okay, just, whoops. Just to ensure we get through it, I suppose doesn't hurt. And let's see what we're up against. So encounter card 1 is Fisherman's Dock. Not a big deal. Encounter card 2. Smaug makes an immediate attack against Lake Town. The last player may declare a defender. Excess damage must be placed on Lake Town. So I suppose I'm just gonna let that resolve. And looks like let's deal a shadow card for Smaug. Good. So it's basically nothing. He's going to end up dealing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 damage to Lake Town. So it looks like the number of damage on Lake Town is getting alarmingly high, but hopefully we'll end up pulling through. So it looks like we're up against 6 threat. We're going to make 11 progress. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So it looks like we more than enough pass. That is
Yeah.
6 more victory points for us, which puts
Yeah.
us at 20. And now we've got a couple options. I guess, do we want to travel to the Master's Manor?
My only thought against it is that we need to start healing some damage off of Lake Town, and that's really going to soak up so much that I'm thinking maybe the other location would be better for now, just so we can heal some damage. Because I mean, if Burn gets resolved, if Smaug has to make another attack against Lake Town, we just don't have a whole lot of wiggle room here. So it seems safer to me to go to Fisherman's Dock and then clear it and then go back to Master's Manor. But I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I suppose that's fair. I'm thinking we can probably just Asphalloth away this dock, so
Sure.
might as well make it active, doesn't hurt anything. And again,
Right.
since there's not already an active location, it's no big deal. The burn damage that we've got in play isn't too significant, but if we get another attacks Lake Town, then that could be a nightmare. Of course,
Right.
we've been on our second quest phase for maybe a minute now, and this is when we quest successfully, any number of progress tokens that would be placed on this quest can instead be used to remove an equal number of damage from Lake Town. So I'm sure we'll be taking advantage of that very shortly.
Mhm.
But that, of course, is going to lead us to our combat phase. So as if 3 attacks weren't already enough, Smaug the Mighty is going to make one last attack. I'm kind of forced, but I'm going to go ahead and do a, I think, 3rd sneak attack.
I am Gandalf, and Gandalf means me.
To put Gandalf into play. For his ability, I'm going to end up drawing 3 more cards. And let's see here. So, Gandalf as defender. Shadow card is going to be an additional attack.
Well, I could cancel it if you want.
Well, would you just want to use Ballin?
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, okay, well good. So let's go ahead and cancel that, please, and do a new shadow card, which is deal 1 damage to each character in play. Any player may discard a hero to cancel that effect. Do you have a hasty stroke?
No.
Okay. So, I guess, do you just want to discard Ballin to cancel the effect, since he would be dying anyway?
Sure.
And this doubly sucks, because on my turn I would have had a hardy leadership I could have put into play. But I guess that is going to be gone. Gandalf is going to end up taking 1 point of damage, and at the end of combat he's going to bounce to my hand. So that definitely sucks, and I suppose at this point, let's refresh,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll make you first player, and then that brings us to resource phase.
Okay. So I'm going to play 3 for Keely, so let me look for Feely.
Okay.
Uh,
Alright.
and that's all I can do.
Okay. And I suppose at this point, we might as well just use Asphalloth now, before we
Sure.
possibly have an immunity to get rid of. So that's 2 points on this. Control V, we're now sitting at 22 victory points. For my turn, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a We Are Not Idle, and I'm going to exhaust Longbeard Orcslayer to do 1 resource on Ori. I'm going to go ahead and draw 1 card, and then discard this event, and I finally end up getting the attachment I'm looking for. So I'm going to do 2 off of Thorin for a Steward of Gondor. I will trigger that right away to do 2 resources on him. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3 resources off of Ori to do Biffer. So his response is I draw 2 cards.
And 1 for Legacy of
Durin, yes, triggers, so I get an additional 1 card. And that's going to help a little bit with questing next turn. With my remaining action, I'm going to go ahead and do 2 resources for a Hardy Leadership, also on Thorin, just in case we get a double 1 damage to all characters. Your allies will survive. And next turn, things should start looking great.
Well, we've been saying that for a while, I feel like.
Right. So,
All right, so I think because I'm just don't want to deal with any Smaug attacks, I think that I will say that he goes in the staging area.
all right. Well, let's see what we're up against. So, Smaug, new version, is Smaug the Terribles. Resolve all burn damage. Oh god. So, let's see here. Looks like we've only got 3. So 1, 2, 3. Not that big of a deal. Let's get rid of the old Smaug. And I don't think we've mentioned this yet, but one of the major complicating factors of this scenario is that every version of Smaug is immune to player card effects. Otherwise, Feint would make this much, much easier. So, I suppose when it comes to committing characters to the quest, who do we want to send?
I guess I'll send everyone. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 from me.
Okay, and I'm going to do 3, 7, 9, 12, which makes a grand total of 22 sent to the quest. So, time to strip off some burn damage, hopefully. Encounter card 1 is going to be North Pier, burn 2, Smaug cannot be damaged. I think this is a 1-copy card. Not that bad with Asphalloth. Encounter card 2 is going to be Smaug makes an attack against Lake Town. The last player may declare a defender against this attack.
That would be you.
And this effect cannot be cancelled. Well, this is a terrifying card to see, because Smaug is attacking for 7 base. The only defender I could declare is Dane, but I've got a feeling that if he dies, this scenario is probably not going to be winnable for us. So I'm thinking this is all going to be up to the Shadow card. Of course, there's no Ballin in play. There's not very many attack bolstering type effects. But I guess let's see what happens. So Shadow card for Smaug, and it is deal 1 damage on Lake Town, 4 damage instead if undefended. So that is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then of course Smaug deals his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that is going to mean that Lake Town has 50 or more damage, it has burned down, and the players have lost.
What would we have stripped, just for fun?
Let's see, it looks like we'd have done a different Shadow, would have been deal 1 damage.
No, I meant how much damage would we have healed with our quest progress?
Oh, I see. Looks like it would have been, we were up against 8, 12... So we'd have stripped 10 damage, which would have been just fine.
Yep.
So that's a bummer. Like I showed, if Ballin would have been in play, the replacement card would have saved the day. So
yeah.
It looks like we've got to chalk that one up as a loss. Unfortunately, we just could not handle all of that damage on Lake Town. I guess maybe if it would have been done in the form of entirely burn damage, we could have exhausted Dane and Glorfindel to kind of distribute the above 50 burn damage between the two of them. It would have certainly resulted in us earning a lot fewer progress tokens and stripping off less burn damage. Maybe the next turn we could have started to get things under control, but it just felt like this entire game, that's kind of the refrain we were saying, like, I don't know, if I said 3 or 4 times next turn everything is going to be better, but I guess, what are your thoughts?
I think this is one of the few scenarios in the game where it really feels like your decisions matter. I think in so many quests, certainly the earlier ones, it's plop down some characters, willpower right for the win. This quest that isn't. So, I'm going back now and analyzing every strategic decision that we made. Should we have done those 4 burn damages that nukes that one particular location? Had we not done that 2 or 3 times, we would have been in much better position, even though there would have been the threat, of course, in the staging area. Asphalloth maybe could have taken care of it. Could we have done some of that burn damage on characters? We never even considered it. We just always put it on Lake Town. Should we have pulled Smaug back down to engage us more often than we did, as opposed to the staging area. This is a quest I've only played twice, and that was when it first was available as print on demand. Once, I think my buddy Paul and I lost it relatively quickly. We played it once again, and we almost stomped it relatively quickly. So I haven't played it in over a year, and I can't say that I'm making maybe the best strategic decisions, but there's lots of different decisions that we could have perhaps made differently that would have completely changed the outcome of the game. Discarding Gandalf versus the Longbeard Orc Slayer, trying to get to 5 dwarves versus needing that willpower to clear that stupid locations are immune to player card effects. So I think that decisions in this quest mean a lot more, which in many senses I think makes it a better quest than a lot of others, which, like I said, are just plop down some allies and quest for the win. So I didn't disenjoy this in any way. I thought disenjoy is not a word, but I didn't not enjoy this particular quest. I thought it was fun, even though we lost, and I'm hoping that we'll be successful in round 2.
Well, doing a quick Google search, it does look like disenjoy is a word to take no pleasure in or to be bored with. So excellent vocabulary, my friend.
Without even knowing.
Right. But I suppose for me, it definitely felt like I was floundering at the start. My opening hand kind of stunk. Ideally, I can hit 5 dwarves very, very quickly. The primary challenge in this scenario, I think, is there's really no emphasis on wanting tactics. Like, it's not until the very end of the game that you want to start dealing damage to Smaug, because we saw at one point move all damage from Smaug to Lake Town, or move 3 damage to Lake Town. So it just seems like between the two of us, trying to draw from what strength in the game we have, like the dwarves or possibly some sort of Elrond deck, there's only a finite number of powerful cards, and kind of splitting those between the two of us, it just made things a pretty daunting challenge. So I feel like I don't want to make too many changes to my deck. I think it definitely had the potential to work really well. Full disclosure, this is actually the first time since August of 2012 that I've played the Battle for Lake Town in a multiplayer environment, so I was kind of surprised going through the video at just how manageable it was putting Smaug there in the staging area. So it seemed like there were so many instances where we were just 1 or 2 behind, where we missed out on triggering Asphaloth, where we could have pushed through a little bit quicker, stripped off some of that burn damage a little bit quicker, started my card acceleration, my resource acceleration. You know, I had a King Under the Mountain in my hand that I would have loved to have the resources to throw on your side of the board. I didn't end up getting my Steward of Gondor until something like 30 cards into my deck, so certainly a little bit of bad luck. There were some soft blows from the encounter deck, to be sure, but I'm curious to see how this goes in some subsequent replays.
Right. I think my final thought is that Balin was just an absolute baller. And that, man, that shadow cancellation, particularly in this quest, I thought was just fantastic. And since I only have Sneak Attack in my deck as the one and only leadership card, it certainly helped just to have that pile of resources to cancel those shadow effects. So I thought he just did fantastically.
Definitely. I mean, just looking at this deck, my primary concerns were the Treachery card, where allies can't defend against attacks, the 4 to 7 Shadow cards, where it gives Smaug an additional attack. I think there's 4 of them. And then there's also 3 or 4 where they subtract defense. So Balin is fantastic. I think the fact that you had a hasty stroke ready when Balin failed us that one time was fantastic. So hopefully in the future this ends up not being that big of a deal. But I suppose we might as well go ahead and bring this video to a close, so thank you guys so much for checking out another entry in the LOTR LCG progression series. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel if you have not done so already, and we'll see you again soon with the Battle for Lake Town Attempt 2. Hello viewers, and welcome to the latest entry in the LOTR LCG Progression Series, a production by Cardboard of the Rings, the bi-weekly podcast, which is a living card game. Fuck.
Yeah, that was fucked up.
Whoops, alright. Hello, viewers, and welcome to the latest entry in the LOTR LCG Progression Series, a production by Cardboard of the Rings, which is a
living card game.
bi-weekly podcast.
Yeah.
Alright.